but they don't.
And welcome to Let 'em Talk. I'm Paul DeRienzo, and we're, as usual, live here from the studios of Manhattan Neighborhood Network in Manhattan, New York City. And joining me on the line is Miss Joan Moossy. Hi, Joan, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am. Hi, everybody.
Great, we hear you loud and clear. Cool. And where are you calling from, Joni?
I am in the Washington, D.C. Reagan, or used to be called National Airport.
And so you're in Washington, outside of Washington, D.C. in Reagan National Airport. And where are you heading?
I'm heading back to New York.
Oh, good. So we'll have you back here soon enough in New York City. Tell me, where are you coming from?
I am coming from Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska, of all places. Wow, that's a
believe
dyed
it?
in the red state. What were you doing, Joni, in Omaha, Nebraska?
Well, we went to Omaha to attend the sentencing hearing of Dana Beal, and in the courthouse of the Saunders County Courthouse. There was a bunch of us there. Ed Rosenthal came from Oakland, California. Marie Cotter came from Auckland, New Zealand. There were Sheila Steinberg and Mike Binkley and Alan Thomas came from New York.
New York, all the way from New Zealand and New York City and all these places to a little town called Saunders, a county called Saunders County. Is that the name
And
of
the
the town?
is called Wahoo.
Wahoo, what a name.
Yeah.
Wahoo, Nebraska. And why were all these people coming from halfway around the world to see Dana Beal in Wahoo, Nebraska?
Well, we came for the sentencing hearing, and about 4 people were able to testify. Unfortunately, the judge kept the hearing to half an hour. So the prosecutor spoke.
Only a half hour. So
spoke,
we're talking about
spoke,
Dana
and
Beal's
the-
sentencing. Dana Beal, the famous New York East Village advocate of medical marijuana, advocate of Ibogaine, often a guest on this show, well known throughout the listening area of this program. Dana Beal was facing sentencing, going to prison. What was he facing sentencing for? What was he facing, risking a prison sentence in Nebraska, Wahoo, Nebraska for, Joni?
Well, he is currently incarcerated, and he was sentenced because he was convicted of carrying 150 pounds of marijuana through Nebraska. He was bringing it to the East Coast, to states that do not have legal medical marijuana, to provide it to very seriously ill patients in clubs that they set up in these states that don't have legal marijuana, to keep these patients supplied with their medicine and off the street and out of dangerous situations to get it.
Take my mic up. So, Joni,
Yes.
Dana, we know Dana. We've been going through all of this for the benefit of those folks who might be tuning in and not know who Dana
course.
Beal is. Dana Beal is, of course, an advocate of medical marijuana, someone who's arrested, facing multiple counts of possession and whatever,
And
traveling with large
lifelong
amounts of marijuana that he claimed
advocate of legalization.
quite well, you know, that were being taken to sick people, to help people who are sick. And Joni, isn't it true that the next state over, if you go a little bit further west in Nebraska, you come to Colorado, a state that just recently legalized marijuana, right?
That's correct. We were so close to a place where they not only legalized it for medical purposes, but for recreational purposes, and allowing people to grow as many as 6 plants.
So there's Colorado, and up there in
Well, there's
Washington.
an irony to this, that
Go
as
ahead.
Dana's lifelong work comes to fruition, that he's sitting in jail.
He's sitting in jail when all over America marijuana is being legalized. It's already legal in.
And it's being legalized because of his work. This is a direct result of the work he's devoted himself to.
Right. One of the leading advocate for legalizing medical marijuana in the United States, probably.
That's
so
correct.
right here, a New York boy, right here from New York. Now, Joni, what?
Yes.
I'm afraid to ask. I've heard a lot of stories. I haven't gotten the straight story yet. This is the first we're hearing it. A lot of people who are friends of Dana's, who know Dana, know Dana's work, are worried right now to hear the answer to this question. What was the decision of the judge there in Nebraska regarding
The
Dana?
judge sentenced Dana to 4 to 6 years in prison. I'm sorry, it's a little bit difficult because there's a PA system and I'm hearing announcements in the background all the time.
Yeah,
but
that was
I don't know if you heard me. He was sentenced to 4 to 6 years in prison.
4 to 6 years in prison. What does that really mean?
Well, this is very debatable what it really means because I also have not gotten a really straight answer yet. Evidently, according to his attorney, Glenn Shapiro, in Nebraska, a sentence is really half of what the lead number is. In other words, if it's 4 to 6, it's half of 4. So he would be incarcerated for 2 years, not 4. But he also has some time served in because, as you know, Dana has been in jail for 2 years already. So he will get some of that time served. The other thing that I've heard from Mr. Shapiro, but without any real confirmation that this will happen for Dana, is that Nebraska has severe overcrowding in their prison system. Therefore, some prisoners are doing 4 months on a year instead of 6 months on a year. Now, tomorrow, I saw Dana this morning in jail. I was able to visit him this morning in jail. Tomorrow, he's going to be transferred back to Wisconsin. The positive thing about that is that he will be able to get an operation for his medical problem right now, which is a double hernia, in Wisconsin. In Nebraska, in their pre-sentencing evaluation, they decided that this was not necessary surgery, despite the fact that Dana is in excruciating pain and having extreme difficulties with this.
I heard in a news report.
I do not know how this is going to pan out. Glenn sent an email around saying he might be in jail until next November, but we're really not sure of that.
Dana is facing medical problems in jail, and the answer that I saw in the media was they're saying, well, there's lots of people with medical problems in jail, and he doesn't get any special treatment from that. But people might not know that back about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Dana had a serious health emergency in the state of Wisconsin where he was being held in jail.
Dana has had 2 heart attacks since he's been in jail.
Okay.
And he's currently got a very severe problem with hernias.
Dana's in serious health problems, and he's a man over 60, so he's...
and he's 65. He's going to be 66.
Coming up pretty soon. So yeah. This is a person, now Dana Beal is a person, they tried to make him out, Joni. I have to say, in the media coverage, the prosecutors tried to make him out as somebody who is just a pot dealer, a drug dealer on the roads of their state, and that he just came up with this medical marijuana shtick before he was facing jail time. We know that's not true, don't we?
And we know that that's completely untrue. The prosecutor absolutely was hell-bent on describing Dana as some kind of drug kingpin who lived a life of luxury. And, of course, as anyone knows who's even seen him on our show, Dana wears the same pair of pants for 20 years. He wears the same boots. He never buys anything for himself. This is a man who's a pauper while he helps other people. He devotes every bit of his time, energy, and money to helping other people. And it was appalling to hear the way that they described him. And fortunately, the witnesses were able to at least express the truth about who Dana is as a person. Now, in terms of the press out there, there was the Omaha World News. They did a print article. We were able to meet that reporter, and he interviewed many of the people there. There was also a Channel 7, a local Channel 7 News cameraman/reporter that stayed in the courtroom during the proceedings because they did not allow cameras in the courtroom in Nebraska. And afterwards, he got his camera and interviewed people outside in the parking lot. The third person there was a courtroom artist who Jim Sutherland, Atlanta-based documentarian who's doing a documentary about Dana, sent in, since there were no cameras allowed. He hired a person to go in and draw the scene so that he would have some visuals for his documentary about this particular event.
If there's folks out there who don't know who Dana Beal is, how is this person sitting in jail in Nebraska attract such a tremendous and widespread level of support? You can't ignore that. I mean, who came all the way from New Zealand to speak on behalf of Dana? Joni?
A woman named Marie Cotter came from Auckland, New Zealand. She's a woman who works in the drug treatment field in New Zealand. She's also a Maori Indian who's an artist and creates traditional Maori crafts. Very beautiful. She is concerned because in New Zealand they have a very big problem with methamphetamine use by their young people. They're losing people right and left. She met Dana on the internet, and he introduced her to ibogaine, which is an addiction interrupter coming from a root in Africa that's been used in many countries to treat people for addiction. It is illegal, a Schedule I drug in the United States, so it's not possible to use it here. But New Zealand is the first country in the world where ibogaine has been legalized as a prescription drug for the treatment of addiction. And Marie Cotter credits Dana personally with saving the lives of thousands of young people in New Zealand, including her own son. And she spoke very eloquently about what kind of a hero Dana really is.
A hero, a national hero in the country of New Zealand. Go ahead.
Her initial statement, when she began her statement, the very first thing she said was, I work in the field of drug treatment in New Zealand, and I would never associate myself with a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be possible. I could not do that.
Right.
Dana is a hero. He's a person who helps people. He does what he does to help people, and he does basically nothing for himself. Her testimony was so incredibly emotionally strong and convincing. The prosecutor never even looked at Marie Cotter. She was looking through her notes, looking down at the table the entire time. Ed Rosenthal, who, as everyone knows from Ask Ed, the High Times column that he did for so many years, and from all the incredible books that he's written and all the work he's done, came from Oakland, California, and spoke forcefully on Dana's behalf. He also spoke very forcefully to the reporters.
Right.
He did an amazing job with his testimony. The patients, of course, are heart-wrenching. Sheila Steinberg with multiple sclerosis, of course, something that has been proven that marijuana stops the progression of the disease of multiple sclerosis. She spoke so beautifully and eloquently about her need for the medicine, about her gratitude to Dana for helping her to get the medicine. Mike Binkley, the longest surviving person with HIV, spoke eloquently as well in defense of Dana, told how thousands of people in the buyers clubs relied on Dana, that he was the only person that would provide this for them at such a low rate. And unfortunately, it didn't seem to sway the judge or the prosecutor. The prosecutor spoke again to rebut the Glenn Shapiro's comment and Dana's comment and the witnesses, and it was as though she had not even listened to what had been said.
Wow.
And then she asked for 8 to 12 years in prison. That's what the district attorney's office was asking for.
8 to 12 years.
That's right. So
that's incredible.
The judge went for less, but she did not release Dana on time served, which is what his supporters were hoping for.
Right. So coming back, now there was some issue, Joni. There was some. Joan Moossy is on the line with us. She's from she's calling on a cell phone, obviously, from the airport there in Washington D.C., the Reagan National Airport, where she's in transit to New York from Nebraska, near Omaha, Nebraska, the town of Wahoo, Nebraska, where Dana Beal, the well-known New York City resident, medical marijuana advocate and advocate of Ibogaine, the West African cure for addiction.
Founder of the Million Marijuana Marches that go on all over the world every year in May.
A long-time hero of sick people and ill people who's provided them with medical marijuana in an era when we've seen medical marijuana itself being legalized in state after state. They're falling like dominoes. Dana was obviously ahead of his time, yet he's still about to serve at least another year in prison, it seems. We're not sure exactly how long that sentence might play out. That's probably where support of his friends and supporters here in New York and around the country and around the world might play a role in helping him, getting him out of jail as early as possible. But didn't the judge in this case limit the amount of time that people could speak and say things about Dana?
Yes, she said that the entire hearing would go half an hour and that was it, and it did. That's exactly how it happened.
So everybody had to speak.
In contrast, of course, to our experience in Wisconsin, where the sentencing hearing went on all day, at least 30 people spoke. People spoke for as long as they wanted. Dana was permitted to make a statement, which lasted for 45 minutes. This is completely different. But let's also note that during the trial, she disallowed two defenses that could have acquitted Dana, especially in front of a jury. She did not permit a medical marijuana defense. She also did not allow a necessity defense, which is a defense that has been used to acquit people based on the fact that they had to commit a crime in order to save other people. And, of course, this is just what Dana was doing. These were disallowed. Fortunately, his lawyer did retain his right to appeal these decisions.
He's going to be appealing that.
All the announcements.
Right, I hear the announcement in the airport there. So, Joan Moossy, tell us what's next for Dana. I've heard stories he might be moved back to Wisconsin, where his original case was located. What's going to happen now?
Well, as far as I know, he's going to be moved tomorrow.
Where to?
At the jail. I was able to spend half an hour with Dana this morning. Marie Cotter was also able to visit and spend an additional half hour with Dana. The visitation there was very strange and disconcerting. You're basically Skyping with the person.
Oh, really?
They are in the common room of the jail in front of a camera, and you're sitting in a completely different part of the building in front of your own camera with a telephone headset to speak to the person.
Oh, really?
So it was very impersonal. I wasn't able to touch Dana or even be across from him through glass. It was all done over video.
Wow. That's the future, huh? Wow.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I say that's the future, right?
Evidently. You could see the other prisoners milling around in the background. It was very odd. It was not like any visit I'd ever had in a prison before.
Right. So they might be
if you remember, when we went to MCC to interview Nasser Ahmed, we sat in the same room with him.
In federal prison, we were right in the same room. Yes, and
One
also
of
with
the most
Sheikh.
high-security prisons in the country, we sat right in the same room.
Right, and with Sheikh Rahman, who was charged with bombing the World Trade Center, I was in the same room.
Yeah,
with him and
this is a small county in Nebraska. We sat in a different part of the building.
Right. Wow. Amazing.
So Dana does not look good. He's very ill.
How is he ill with his pain?
Needs medical care very badly. He's very thin. Of course, they brought him into court in chains, despite the fact that he's never been accused of any violence in this case. He was chained, handcuffed to the chains. He's just the same as ever, personality-wise. I mean, we were all very upset about the sentence and about not understanding exactly what it meant. He phoned us afterwards yesterday and was giving instructions to people about working towards the legalization and acceptance of Ibogaine. So
he's still the same old Dana.
A bit. He's still working on his missions. He's a man with a mission. He's an outlaw hero, and he is working on getting Ibogaine accessible to addicts around the world from his jail cell.
Okay. So are they going to take him back to Wisconsin?
Evidently, he will be transferred back there tomorrow. I don't understand all the details of this, but evidently there's something called a detainer that
No.
means something like Wisconsin released him to Nebraska for them to try him, but then they want him back to finish his Wisconsin sentence with them.
And are these going to be concurrent or one after another?
Well, that's another thing that I'm not very sure of. What Mr. Shapiro, Dana's attorney in Nebraska, told me was that the judge did not mention concurrence or sequential sentences, and that he believed that the implication was that they would be concurrent because she didn't say that they would be served consecutively.
Right.
I don't know if that's the case, but she did not specify. The judge did not specify in court whether this was a concurrent or consecutive sentence. Evidently, Nebraska does accept the time served in another jurisdiction.
So it does. This wouldn't be unusual.
So it is a possibility that he will be serving these concurrently, but it's not a guarantee that I can say I'm sure of.
Okay. So there's still a lot of questions unanswered in all of this.
Yes, there are. There's a huge number of questions unanswered. When we went Monday to try to see him in jail, they had lost the new visitors list, and we weren't on the old one, so we weren't permitted in.
Yeah.
And when I asked about coming back this morning, the lady at the visitor center said, if he was sentenced yesterday, he'll probably won't be here tomorrow. So evidently they moved them out of the county jail fairly quickly, but we were able to see Dana today, and my understanding from him was that he was to be moved back to Wisconsin tomorrow, but we'll have to wait and see whether that really happened.
All right. So there was no mention at all in the fact that the next state west of Nebraska, marijuana was legalized just a few weeks ago.
Well, there was mention of it by the witnesses, in particular Ed Rosenthal, who, of course, is an expert on marijuana in many of its facets. He did mention that. There was no mention by the judge or the prosecutor. There was no concession made to him because of the popular desire for the legalization of marijuana. Their contention, what the prosecutor said, was that regardless of what the popular opinion is, he broke our law and we are going to punish him for that.
All right.
They treated him verbally, the way they spoke of Dana was as a common criminal. If you see the coverage on Channel 7, the Omaha station, the television station that came, they interviewed someone else in the district attorney's office. I'm not sure of the man's name. I think it was Tingelhoff, and he described Dana as a street dealer, which is about as inaccurate as humanly possible.
Yeah. So the truth didn't seem to be important in the state of Nebraska.
They were not really concerned about the changes in the law or the trend towards legalization. No, they were concerned about the fact that, one, he broke a law of theirs, and two, that they felt that he had no remorse, and they felt that he showed a massive disrespect for the law because he was on bail from their arrest when he was arrested in Wisconsin.
Right.
Those were their points that they felt were against Dana.
It's always a dangerous time when times are changing right at that cusp. No one wants to be the last person killed in the Great War, you know? And it's sad
he's being martyred at a point in history that's very ironic that his work is coming to fruition now and he's sitting in a jail. It's very ironic, yes.
Yeah. So what does Dana want people to do? What's the next? We have about 3 minutes here. What's the next step in all of this, Joni?
Well, of course, Dana is still working on acceptance of Ibogaine as an addiction treatment for addicts. Dana needs his medical care. He, of course, is very happy to receive letters to have money put into his account so that he can make telephone calls and continue his work. Those are the things that people can do to support him. And, of course, if you're in Wisconsin, please visit Dana in jail. It helps so much to see his friends and supporters come to him and to be able to communicate personally with them. And so
do we know where he's going to be held in Wisconsin
yet? Get onto his visitors list and visit him. And everybody else, please write. We will be putting his new address when we know what it is on the Free Dana, Free Ourselves page on Facebook.
Free Dana, Free
Nancy
Ourselves.
Allen will do that.
Okay. Free Dana, Free Ourselves on Facebook. Good way to stay in touch with Dana supporters and Dana medical marijuana movement.
And Nancy Allen, who's sort of the head of his support group, is really on top of that, and I know that she'll put out that address as soon as she knows it.
Start searching. Get on Facebook or any other major social networking site and check for Dana Beal.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
Well, I'm just mentioning to the audience, they can hashtag Dana Beal. They can go to Facebook and type in Dana Beal. They can search Dana Beal YouTube and see a lot of information.
Great, and they can see other shows that we did with Dana, of course, if they go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/LetHemTalk, and just put Dana Beal into the search.
Right, /LetHemTalk, LETEMTALK, over YouTube, search for Dana Beal, BEAL, and you'll see the shows we've done with him. Last week we played the last program we had with Dana. So, thanks, Johnny, for joining us from the airport. I can hear the flights are being announced as we speak behind you.
I'm sorry, there's an announcement.
No, I'm mentioning we can hear the flights being announced behind you at Reagan National Airport in Washington. So it must mean it's getting time to move, and we have another minute here. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you so much. See you all next week. I'll be there in the studio, and
great.
Thank you so much, Paul DeRienzo.
All right, thanks a lot, Joni, and we'll see you next week.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, great. Joan Moossy. Thank you very much. Okay, that was Joni speaking with us, telling us the latest update on Dana Beal's case. Dana Beal, the medical marijuana activist from New York City, who was early yesterday, sentenced to 4 to 6 years in state prison in the state of Nebraska.